Oil. You know, if you read "Behold the Pale Horse" by Bill Cooper, he talks about this like war on women, where it was just to turn them to emotional monkeys, basically, where they there's no logic. They just react to everything emotionally, which is what we're seeing today. You know, the male and the fem the masculine and the feminine work together. What is in your view, and then we'll get to your question,
Okay.
but what is your view of the roles of men and women if it was in its proper place?
So I would say that the roles of male men and women, they are the same today as they have ever been. And please do not sort of look into it in a context of, provider versus woman who is home, sort of taking care of the home or anything like that. This is the matrix changing the kind of codes on our roles. And I don't even like the word roles, because it kind of sets us into often triggering kind of positions, right? But I like to talk about what have we been built to do? What are we
Okay.
built to do?
What are we built
And a
to do?
woman, pardon?
Yeah, go on. What are men and what are women built to do? Male, masculine, feminine.
Absolutely. So women are built physically, spiritually, energetically to perform full spectrum of alchemy. And alchemy includes, and this is quite critical, because we're gonna we have to venture onto certain territories that might trigger people. A woman in her alchemy is the one that's responsible for resurrection. A woman in her alchemy is the one that's responsible for guiding whoever is dying, for guiding her man or whoever else as a shaman over to the so-called other side. But how? Because she, as a shaman, has the ability to guide people out of this matrix, so that you do not get lured back onto the reincarnation cycle of this matrix, back onto the earth, the loop, the infinite loop that the Hermetic texts describe. Women back in the day knew the way out of this matrix without being lured by this mechanism, without being lured into this infinite loop. A woman as a shaman would have been responsible for the sort of implosion of the soul, otherwise in shamanism later known as picking up fragmented pieces of the soul, right? Returning to wholeness. These were natural abilities of a woman that she would bestow upon the man as well. A woman was the one who performed the anointment. And in Hermetic texts, we hear, and in the Gospels, in the Gnostic Gospels, I think it was Gospel of Philip, if I remember correctly, or Thomas. The Gospel speaks specifically that the one who's been anointed by a woman can have everything. What does that mean? These are certain processes, and we can obviously go deeper into this. This is the true way out of the matrix, because a woman in her alchemy, she represents the tree of life. What does that mean? She's connected to the upper kingdom and to the lower kingdom. She's connected, and if we let's translate that onto physics. Woman in her alchemy is connected to the 0 point field. She is connected to the so-called dark energy, dark matter, which happens to represent 99.999% of the totality of the landscape in this universe. She's able to pull anything out of the 0 point field and materialize it into this reality, which means women as the weavers of the web of life, if they are connected to across those as the tree of life, they connected to the cosmic and to the lower world. Why? Because there are certain specifically energetic points that they need to be connected in order to access the 0 point field. They literally bring in anything. And this is why anything meaning what? Wealth, health, abundance, happiness, whatever. They are able to pump this realm with the highest vibrational energies, which means this matrix, this world as they have created it cannot, those two cannot function together, because the energies that the woman is able to bring in are going to dissolve, they're going to transmute the lower vibrational energies naturally. This is the true reason why this matrix had to immediately target women and ensure that women are cut off, kind of literally, from being able to access these potentials. And women have been reduced to childbearing, right? To procreation. Creation has ceased. Procreation continued so that we get more slaves into the matrix.
Interesting. But this is a question for this particular podcast. Is there dark magic, white magic, in your opinion?
I mean, certainly the kind of witches that I'm referring to have nothing to do with any kind of magic, be it white or black. Alchemy is not magic. Alchemy is literally the capacity of a woman's hormonal system through the virtue of being able to produce certain secretions. These are natural processes. You know, if we're talking black magic or white magic, then equally we should call childbirth also a black magic or white magic, or, you know, the fact that every month the woman menstruates, is that black magic? It is not. So I think we need to be very careful about how we understand certain terminology. So when I call, when I refer to witches of the past, I am not talking about any kind of women practicing some kind of weird magic or witchcraft as understood in a sort of modern context. I'm talking about women. By the way, the whole word witch comes from wisdom. Witch is the one who holds wisdom. And witch happens to be witch/shaman. That happens to be one of the alchemical aspect of every woman. So when I refer to women as witches, I refer to them through their alchemical aspect, which has nothing to do with magic. This is not magic. This is natural capacity. It's just that we have lost understanding and the whole sort of context of what a woman is able to do, what the woman is able to perform, not in some ritualistic context, but just as a function of our hormonal system, of our body. So I'm talking about literally very natural processes that women would have been engaged in, would have been naturally performing back in the days. I'm not talking about any kind of rituals. I'm not talking about any magic, black magic, white magic. Does that exist? Surely, because things get manipulated. That's when the mind also gets involved. You know, mind is the playground of the gods. So they absolutely love to pull out women out of their element and start using manipulation of the energy, not alchemy of the energy, not natural processes, but when women start manipulating, which is absolutely not what I'm talking about, and this is something that absolutely should not be done. Any level of manipulation immediately, unfortunately, is very, very destructive for a woman and for what she stands for. So this is not what I'm talking about. I'm not referring to any level of manipulation, any black magic or white magic, any love magic or anything like that. Absolutely not.
By any chance, do you mean like maybe like, you know how you hear people say womanly instinct, motherly instinct, Is that something, is that a power you would say that is kind of
Yeah,
like the moon messes with?
absolutely. But you see, this is kind of again reducing this whole interpretation, or perhaps this whole scope that I'm trying to describe, to literally procreation, motherly instinct. Women are mothers of the universes, not because they give birth to children, but because they give birth to everything. As in, they materialize, because we have the womb, we have the Holy Grail, we have the portal inside of our womb, which happens to be the entrance into this realm. This is how you bring in a child into here. This is how you bring in a soul. You need a portal. And so a woman is able to materialize into this reality other things as well that we have lost knowledge of. We have lost these teachings. These teachings are now coming back. And I happen to come from a line of teachings and the Eastern Europe, where these things have been performed till very recently. So what's the example of that? For example, women would have, during war, during difficult times, there was always something to eat. There was no supermarket, there was no supply, there was no sort of supply chain and logistics involved. Of course, there was nowhere to get the food from. There was nowhere to make sure that things are provided. Yet women were able to do that, and they were doing that through their alchemy. This is not manifestation, because manifestation runs through the mind, through the head. This is alchemical process of birthing. Of course, we're not talking about literally physically birthing food, because some people might misunderstand. But this is a process where, in a sort of way, we were told as children that a woman just, whatever she covers with her skirt, do not look under the skirt. Things will happen. Just know that things will happen. And remnants of these teachings, they still can be seen in indigenous cultures. For example, in Polynesia, when the fishermen, when they go to sea to fish, they first, the night before, their wives, the women of that tribe or that community, they alchemically perform certain things. These are not rituals, these are natural capacities of women to make sure that the nets of the fishermen are full. So when the fishermen go to sea the next day, they don't have to have super instruments to look where the fish can be found, or they do not have some super fishing spots to make sure that something is always there waiting for them. They just need to go out and throw the nets. Yeah. That's how it was done up until the 70s, 80s, even 90s, when we still held that wisdom, when we still had it. So you see, this goes way beyond the kind of mothering. This goes into a woman being able to literally weave this reality in the way that you want, and not in the way that Matrix has provided you with a scenario, which is their scenario of the gods, which always involves some level of misery and negativity, negative experiences, and overall not a positive type of life.
You said something maybe I misunderstood, but when you said birth another slave, is that what did you say that line, and what did you mean by that?
Well, I meant that, women back in the day, so think about it, right? If you look into the nature, no other mammal or animal our size is in heat or has the capacity to become pregnant 13 times a year. Look at the zebras, look at the lions, look at the other ones, right? That happens once a year for about our size, right? But a woman is like an incubator. 13 times a year, we are ready to get pregnant. Why is that? Because that's not nature. This is not nature. And I will tell you more. When we go back in time, women would control their own cycles. they would not be menstruating every month, every 28 days, which is that is taken over by the moon. This is the moon control over a woman. Women would decide for themselves, and even up until the 70s, 80s, in some remote places, in some cultures that were perhaps a little bit away from the civilization, women continue to be able to control that, literally up until 40, 30, 50 years ago. So this is not natural that women have lost control. First of all, look even at the fact that for animals, when they are in heat, that's the time when they know that they can procreate, they can get pregnant, and they can sort of continue the line, right? But with women, it's the opposite. We actually don't exactly know. It is not very clear when that exposure point, when that time, I mean, of course, it's about 14 days, it's somewhere in the middle, but actually if, this is not very clear. This is why we have so many women, not being really able to control the process, falling pregnant without actually wanting to or planning to. Part of design, but not by us, part of the design by the Archons. So why would you go so against the nature and keep women, sort of take away that ability from a woman to control such a natural cycle for her? So she loses the ability to have that control. Why? Well, you gotta answer, right? That's this matrix needs slaves. We are back to slaves who are here to perform, to sort of take part in the game. And the game is usually full of traumas, full of challenges, full of difficulties. So people, people struggle. People's lives are difficult. People react with low vibrational emotions, with, frustration, anger, shame, guilt, worry, hate, hatred, competition. That is the food of this matrix. They're not interested in us producing high vibrational energies. They're not interested in that because they're not compatible with that. The psychopaths, the tyrants that stand behind this matrix, they do not feed on the good stuff. They feed on the lowest vibrational stuff. The more, the merrier. The more slaves, the better. They needed slaves, so things have been set up in a way to make sure that cycle, right, and that sort of production, that the farm needed to run. So I'm sorry for being perhaps choosing words that might be triggering for people, but we have to describe what's been going on here.